Never again. Just let it do its thing. Let it compound. You would have $1.57 million. Your contribution would have been $35,000, but you'd have 1.7. Now, I have a daughter who just turned 36, but let's say you start at 29, you don't even start. You'd have to literally put the 5,000 every year from age 29 to 62 to have basically the same amount of money. The difference is you would have contributed 170,000 compared to do it early, you only had to contribute 35. That's compound interest. That's the rule of 72. That's how powerful time is, right? And this is based on an 8% or a 10% rate of return. So if you can make more, great. What vehicles can you do them in? You could be in the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is average over the last 75 years, a little over 8%. So it's pretty good. It's had 12, 13% years, and it's had 4 or 5% years, right, when our economy does what it does. So this chart here is just to show you the value of time. But I'm going to let you in a little secret in a few minutes that show you how to accelerate this so you don't have to wait for the time. How would you feel if you're like, hey, listen, I don't want to wait 30 or 40 years to get that money? What if I could explain and show you how you could do that at a much faster rate? Something that you'd be excited for? Yeah? So, again, Einstein says compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So you're on one side or the other. Try to be on the right side, because compound interest is your friend, for sure. Okay? So let's talk now about credit and debt. How well versed do you think you are with credit? Do you really understand it? So credit is, there's 5 criteria when we're building our credit. Most people know at least 3 of them. But here's the 5. The credit score factors are payment history, everybody knows that one, capacity used, credit history, the types of credit used, and past credit applications. So we could see the percentages of how heavy they weigh. Understand and knowing your credit, you should check your credit minimum once a month, because your credit fluctuates every time you spend $1. It moves, it's like a heartbeat, it's just constantly doing this. So when someone says, hey, my credit score is 750, like when was the last time you checked it? That's been about 3 months. It could be 700 today. It could be 800. Hard to say. So I don't think enough Americans, I've sat and interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and I would ask, how often do you check your credit? And most of them would tell me, maybe twice a year. I said, well, how often do you check your bank balance? Well, I check my bank balance every other day. I gotta know where I'm at. You know what I mean? You would not go 6 months without checking your check balance, right? You go like, where am I at? I gotta know where I'm at. You should treat your credit the same way. There's plenty of free places to check your credit. Credit Karma's free. A lot of great tools that you can use on there. And your credit card companies now give you your credit score for free, right? Because they used to cost. Now people say, well, every time I check my credit, it'll ding my credit. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. There's a hard pull and a soft pull. Who knows the difference? What's the difference?
Well, hard pull is when you're actually applying for a loan, and then there's a soft pull where they're like our banks do. Because Chase does that. Chase, I can check my credit score out from Chase all the time, and they're not actually running my credit. There's just a small scope.
Close.
Right?
Pretty close. You're just a little off. And you think?
Well, they're just basically viewing it on the soft pull.
So here's the difference. There are 3 credit bureaus. If they pull from all 3, that is a hard pull. If they pull from one, soft pull. So generally speaking, you go to, I want to buy a car, or I want to do, I'm checking whatever, that is a soft pull, and you won't be dinged. But the minute they pull all 3, and you have to ask them, because a lot of them won't tell you. They want to know all 3, especially buying a car. They want to know all 3.
Credit
Right?
Karma just pulls from 2, so that's.
Right, exactly. So that's why we don't get dinged on that one, right? So I always say with whatever the number that you'll see on Credit Karma, the actual numbers plus or minus about 15 points, you know. So don't think that if it looked low, you're like, nah, they could be late. And they change every 2 weeks. I think it's every other Tuesday, your Credit Karma score will change. So it's not, that one's not daily, they do it every 2 weeks, okay? So really understanding the factors that, hey, my payment history, that's number one, that's 35% of my score, right? My capacity used, what does that mean, capacity used?
How much of your credit you use?
Give me an example, Faith.
Like if the credit line's like 1,000, you only use like 30% of it, right?
Exactly, see, she does learn, she does listen to Dad. Yeah, 30% is the number. So if 30% is the number, you don't want to go over 30% or your score will start to go down. What did I teach you to do?
Use multiple cards,
Well-
or get a higher limit so you can.
Yeah,
only use
get a
one.
limit that, if you know that you're gonna spend on your credit cards every month $1,000, how much money in credit should you have? Probably 4,000, so you're at 25% and you're gonna be fine, right? One of the things that I taught Faith with credit cards is a lot of people think credit cards are bad, right? How many times, have you guys heard that? People go, oh, credit cards are bad. Don't get credit cards, it's terrible. Well, you know what? A credit card's a piece of plastic. A credit card is not bad. The person using the credit card is doing wrong things. So let's not blame the credit cards or the credit card companies. Do they induce us to do things? Do they want, because they make a lot of money? Absolutely. But it's still our choices of what we do with those credit cards. But if you learn how to play the credit card game correctly, to your advantage, it's massively huge, massively. So I won't get real deep into that one. So here's your credit scores. I tell everybody, you've got to reach 750. Anything over 750 is gravy. You don't have to have an 800 credit score. You hit 750, you'll go sign for whatever you want and get the lowest interest of whatever you're buying, right? Don't worry about it. At fair, you want to at least get that, it's funny because look, it's 1 point difference from fair to good. 1 point. But that's what they look at. It's literally, that could be a difference in when you're buying a car, the finance charge going from, 0.09% to 2.9. It's that big, 1 point. So what could be some of the things that you could do to make that 1 point change? Your ratios could change. Make sure there's nothing derogatory. I think in today's world, there's so much fraud going on this planet, right? Identity theft, it's ridiculous. That's another reason that you should check your credit scores all the time, because you'd be like, hey, what's that? And you call them up and it says here, well, you charged $1,800 on a Samsung TV in Florida. Like, I ain't never been to Florida. That wasn't me, right? And now you have a dispute and you gotta go on. But some people, if they don't check their credit for 6 months, what happens? People are just tearing up their lives are gonna get, it's turmoil. And I see when fraud happens, identity theft happens, it's typically average 12 months to get it all untangled. It's really a nightmare. If you know anybody that's gone through it, they'll attest to that. So my question is, debt, yes or no? Is it good or bad? What do you think? Is debt good or bad?
Yes, kind of off what you were just saying. I mean, because using credit cards kind of puts you in a state of debt, correct?
I like to look at debt as, like, this couple here is on the beach in front of a fire. Is that fire good for them or bad for them? Good, that's keeping them warm. It's probably chilly out there on the beach that night, right? Or, how's the fire doing here? It's burning down a house. Treat debt like fire. It's good and it's bad. It just depends how you use it. So when anybody ever tells you, hey, debt's bad, they just don't understand it, right? If we leverage debt to make money, that's a great thing. If debt gets you in trouble and you go the opposite direction, I'm in debt, I'm drowning in debt, I can't pay my bills, that's a bad thing. Obviously, we all know that, right? So leveraging debt is a very positive thing to do, okay? Just learning how to do it. So let's get into savings. Is savings hard or is it just me? Who likes saving? Nobody likes saving. You know, you've got all this money sitting here. You're like, I want to go here. I want to buy this. I want to help whoever. Robert Kiyosaki, we talked about earlier, He has a famous quote. Robert Kiyosaki says, savers are for losers. Savings is for losers. That's what he says. Savings is for losers. I kind of agree with him on this one. Because as we make, we go trade, if you got a job, you're trading time for money, you get your paycheck, what's the first thing that typical Americans do with their paycheck when they get it? What do you think?
Put it in the bank or spend it.
Spend it. I gotta pay a bill, I wanna buy this, I wanna go there. That's what their mindset is, that's what they're thinking. What should you do when you get your paycheck? The first thing you should do.
Pay yourself.
Exactly, Harvey. Exactly, because who's more important than yourself?
No one.
Nobody.
No one, no thing.
No bill, no anything else. Pay yourself first. I got a quote coming up here from Warren Buffett. Pay yourself first. It's that simple. Sounds that simple, right? Warren says, hey, don't save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after savings. Here's a billionaire. We all heard the stories how conservative he lives, even though he's got billions of dollars, right? Super conservative. But his wealth didn't really start to accumulate till he turned like 55. So he was really diligent about being conservative most of his life and following this principle, right? And we've got to at least listen to what he's saying. Because he has money. So here's Warren Buffett's 5 life tips. On earnings, never depend on a single income. Make investments to create a second source, right? On spending, if you buy things you don't need, soon you will have to sell things you need. We've all seen that, right? On savings, do not save, the previous one is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. On taking risk, this is a good one. Never test the depths of the river with both of your feet. Simpler way of saying that is don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? You need to learn when you're investing to diversify. In case something goes wrong or whatever the investment happens to be. And the last one on expectations. Honesty is a very expensive gift. Do not expect it from cheap people. Right? So, good salespeople. Those people you gotta worry about. So instead of savings, we should have buckets of where we put our money. Right? So we cash our check, we pay ourselves first. What should we do when we pay ourselves first? The big one right up front, our retirement, our future. Right? Nobody wants to work until they die. We want at some point in time have enough money where we can, whatever that lifestyle may be, whether it's a $2,000 a month lifestyle at retirement or a $20,000 plus month at retirement, right? We don't know. But along the way, hey, I gotta save for a house, hey, I've got a trip I wanna go do, all these different buckets. I gotta put money in my stocks, that's growing, and then you got your little savings one over there. Most people don't do it because saving's hard. It's not easy. It's a lot of self-discipline. But until we put it in the places where we know we can't touch, like I've got Faith, her first one is her Roth IRA. I told her that's a steel piggy bank. You put that money in there, it's not coming out. You leave it in there. Don't worry about it. It'll be there for you later, right? And so that's how important it is to have the right mindset, diligence, to understand, don't just save to save for a purpose. And that's why Kiyosaki says savers is for losers. Saving for a purpose is what we want to do, okay? The next one here is investing. How many people in this room are investing right now? Good? A little bit hard? A little bit? Face investing? Yeah, you got your Roth, that's investing, right? I've got my Roth, yeah, we're investing. Investing is the way to financial freedom. No two ways about it. Like Warren Buffett says, multiple streams of income. If you only have one job your whole life, or only carry one job, you could do 50 things in your whole lifetime, doesn't matter. You need to have multiple streams of income. There are 24 hours a day. How many hours in a week? Boom. 168, she says. She's right. 168 hours in a week. So we got to learn how to maximize those hours in making money. If our jobs only need 8 hours out of us, and we figure an hour there, hour home, 10 hours a day, you sleep 8, unless we listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said 6, right? We've got to do other things. Especially I think in today's world, so much easier to make money online. Just go home, spend an hour or two on a computer to learn how to make another source of income. I don't care if it's only another $1,000 a year. If you put $1,000 a year, and you know the rule of 72 is working in your favor, 10, 15, 20 years later, what are you gonna have? you have a nice little chunk of money, right? God forbid you figure out how to do something online that makes you an extra 20, 30, 50 grand a year, let that compound, you can be financially independent in 5 years, right? So again, find multiple sources of income. That's the way that you're gonna be able to get to your financial goals. Now, investing, there's a lot of places that we can put our money, right? An IRA, a Roth IRA, mutual funds, index funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, 401k, 403b, a 529 plan, annuities, insurance, and real estate. Does everybody know every one of these? Which one don't you know?
The 529.
529 is an educational plan. You got kids?
Grown.
Grown. You got grandkids?
2.
Yeah. That would be a plan you would open for your grandkids. And then when they have birthdays, you tell everybody, don't buy my kids toys. Go contribute to the 529. That's gonna help pay for the college. There's some things about the 529 plan you should know, but at least go home and study the 529. That's gonna help you. And the 529 plan, when you start when they're like, 2, 3, 4 years old, that's an educational fund. There's private schools in every city today. Our city is ranked very high as the worst school district in the nation, right? I mean, we're terrible. We're like third from the bottom. I mean, we do not get good marks on our school system here. So there's a lot of private schools in this city, right? But they all cost money. So you can use the 529 plan, and it's a tax deduction. So you put that money, or people put that money in there, it's a tax deduction. It's a great way to pay for school. But there's one little caveat. If over time, let's just say hypothetically, you put $100,000 in a 529 plan, your child turns 18, decides not to go to college, because not every kid goes to college, right? Whose money is it? Now, there is a stipulation in there that you don't have to give it to them until they turn 25, because God knows you wouldn't want to give an 18 or 20-year-old $100,000. What are they gonna go do?
Everything.
Go buy a car.
Right.
An $50,000 car, right? So do your homework on that one. That's a great one. Does everybody know the difference between an IRA and a Roth IRA? So the traditional IRA versus the Roth. Out of all these things that you see up here, the wealthiest people on the planet, there's 2 vehicles up here that they use the most to get wealthy. The first one is the Roth IRA. The traditional IRA that you can grow grows tax deferred. So you don't pay any taxes on right now. You will pay tax on it in the future. I'm not a huge fan of tax deferred because nobody knows the future. This country at one point in time, about 85 years ago, had a tax rate for the wealthy of 90%. You can even imagine that. How about a tax rate of 90%? Like, I get 90% of what you make. You're that rich. And they had to pay it. Today's tax code, and I have an example here in a minute, depending where you're at. And you should know where you're at, because there's some fine line numbers when you start to make good money, like, do I want that raise? That's gonna send me up on that next tax bracket. That raise is not a raise. If you do the math, I'm actually gonna make less money. Thank you, Mr. Boss, I'm gonna deny that raise, right? You may have to do that. So understanding and knowing that. The Roth IRA, so the IRA is funded with pre-tax dollars, meaning it'll come out of your actual paycheck. Your employer puts it in for you. Versus the Roth IRA, it's your responsibility. After you cash your check, you go deposit your money into the Roth IRA. The great thing about the Roth IRA is you don't ever pay any tax on that money, right? They both carry the same stipulations. You can't take the money out till you're 59 and a half. If you do, there's penalties, 10% right up front, right off the top. The Roth IRA, you have to be vested at least 5 years before you can take money out. So your money's gotta be in there at least 5 years before you can take out. Then you could take out your contribution, but not what it earned. But the biggest thing about that Roth IRA that none of these other ones can do, the limitations on each one of these are $6,000 until you hit the age of 50, and then it goes to $7,000. But the biggest difference is the Roth IRA going tax-free is that you can use that vehicle to invest with. So if you have $10,000 in your Roth, and there's something you want to invest in, say a stock, someone gives you a stock tip, like, hey, go buy this stock, it's going to grow. you can grow and accelerate that Roth by there. So let's say you buy a stock, you sit on it for a couple of years, you put $2,000 in it, and 2 years later, it's worth $20,000. Your Roth just grew by 20,000 tax-free. So using that, so what the wealthy do is they use the Roth to do all their business in. After the age of 59 and a half, you could literally invest in, say, a piece of land, turn around and sell it 30 days later, and it made $1 million, and you just made a tax-free $1 million if you're over 59 and a half. You can just take it the next week. And this is how and why the wealthy get wealthier, right? So that's my number one go-to. Mutual funds, all of these, and index funds, you gotta be careful where you do it. The financial industry, how they make their billions of dollars is fees. Fees that range anywhere from 0.5 point to 2.5. Some of them are as high as 3%. And when you compound that on a 401k, you end up losing about 2/3 of your money. So you gotta be careful on that. Most people will get a job and whether you go to HR and they say, hey, sign here, this is for your 401k, we contribute X percentage, we match you, whatever they say. Sounds great on the surface, but if you don't know where your money's actually getting parked and your fees are exceeding your growth, that's a bad thing. You're gonna lose a lot of money, okay? So a lot of these, we can make money through insurance when you're wealthy, not when you're younger. And obviously real estate, there's a lot of people that get really, really wealthy with real estate, okay? So, Warren Buffett's rule about investing. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Easier said than done. Don't lose money. So, I don't know if you know anything about Warren Buffett. He literally studies companies for a whole year before he'll invest in one. Him, Ray Dalio, these guys do so much homework before they decide to put $X and either buy a company or invest, because when they invest big. They'll invest, I want 10% of that company kind of thing, 20% of that company. They'll do homework for a year before they decide. They want to know everything, all the ins and outs about it, right? So that's what he says, never lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1, okay? I've read this book 7, 8 times. This is an awesome book. I'm going to give you guys a sheet at the end here. I have some books that I recommend that you read. And I don't read them. I'm an Audible guy. I just don't like to read words, right? Audible is really good. This book here will teach you so much about what we've been talking about today. It's kind of scary. It's an unbelievable, and it will take you at least 2 or 3 times of listening or reading it to kind of get it. But what he did was he interviewed 10 of the top billionaires on the planet. How'd you do it? How'd you become a billionaire? Tell me your secrets. And they all told him. They said, it's not a secret, I'll tell you. And he sat and interviewed, had, 3-4 hour interviews with these guys, and they said, this is what Americans aren't doing that they should be doing, right? So I highly recommend this book. So let's talk about taxes. What about taxes? Who likes paying taxes? Raise your hand. You should like paying. Problem is that nobody understands or knows the tax code well enough to take advantage of it. And I can tell you right now, the tax code is written mainly for investors. The worst people that get hit for taxes are W-2 earners. They pay the most. So the sooner that you can develop some sort of a corporation that does all of your investing for you, don't invest in your personal name on a lot of these things, if you're going to invest in real estate or something, open a corporation, and then you'll be surprised of the tax benefits that you get. Because it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right? So here's the tax bracket, so you guys understand them. We all pay a percentage, right? So the highest right now, this number fluctuates. Usually when we get a new president, they change it, right? So we're at 37% right now if you make over $510,301. If you're single. If you're married, you're allowed to make anything over $600,000. So know that chart, know where you're at. Like talked before, if you're at 24%, you go to 32, that's an 8% jump. Look at the difference. If I'm making a $150,000 salary and my boss wants to give me a $15,000 a year raise, that puts me over into this bracket. which is, I pay 8% more in tax, is it worth making that extra 15 grand? Oh, it's totally not worth it. Like, hey, you wanna give me a $40,000 raise, so I can actually make about maybe half of that, cause the other half's gonna go to Uncle Sam? So you need to know where you're at, to know where I need to jump to, the tax I'm gonna make. Now, we all get an automatic standard deduction of $12,000 a year, but when you become an investor, you could work your job, your nurse, school teacher, whatever, like, hey, I open up Corporation ABC because I invest in real estate, I invest in stocks, I invest in whatever. You are now an official investor. You can now have all these write-offs that can take you below that 160 and save the 8%, right? So just learning the tax structure and how it works to your advantage is vital. And again, all these topics that I'm going over, surface. I'm gonna dig deep into them and give a lot of resources of where everybody can learn and dive in and get themselves in a better financial position, okay? So like I said earlier, it's not how much money you make that's important, it's how much we keep, right? So let's talk about retirement. What does that even mean? I have a question on here that says, what is retirement age? You say, I don't see it. What do you mean by that?
I don't see it.
You don't see retirement for you?
At this rate, yeah, doing what I've been doing, I just don't see it.
That's why you're here, right? So I hope by the end here that there's some light there that says, you know what, I can do this. There is a way. You're young, you're only 30. Most millionaires make their millions from 0 to a million in less than 5 years. You just gotta know how, right? What do you think retirement age is?
Well, for Social Security, it's 67, right?
Okay, if you want to count Social Security, but is Social Security, is the Social Security that people get today enough to survive?
No,
So can we depend on it? Should we
No.
depend on it?
no.
And we're at the age where they've told us, I think it's the year 2035 when that's it.
Right.
There's no more. So guys like you and me can't really depend on it, right? So, but I asked the question of what age is retirement, because that comes back to tradition, is we're all taught that what age is retirement. And some people say when Social Security kicks in. When I get the main answer I usually get is 65. That's retirement. And the reality is, it's not, because when are you retired?
Retired is when you have enough financial means to be able to go ahead and maintain your lifestyle.
There you go. Retirement is when you stop living at work and begin, right, working and living. When you are financially independent, when your money makes enough money to support your lifestyle. Is there an age for that? No. We talked earlier, Mark Zuckerberg became a billionaire in his mid-20s. He could have retired
Yeah.
at that point. He's too young. He loved doing what he did. It's a passion. He still does it today. So I think the mindset of retirement as an age is a silly, silly thing. We shouldn't think that way, because if you think mentally that's what it is, then you just keep working thinking, well, it's not time to retire. I should wait. I got to keep working because I'm not old enough yet, right? When, no. Retire, put yourself in the position where you have the choice of saying, I'm going to keep working because I love what I do, not because I have to, right? And consider yourself retired. Well, if that's all fun and games, you have to have a work ethic. Without a work ethic, that's not going to happen either, because we all know now, I mean, life is simple, it's just not easy, right? Life is simple, it's just not easy. We need to go out there and have good work ethics, right? 168 hours in the week, how many hours should I work? As many as I can if I'm trying to get to a financial goal, right? What else are you going to do? If you're not working, making money, what are you probably doing?
Spend your money.
Exactly. So be careful what you do with those paychecks that you get. Put it to work. Let the rule of 72 be your friend. Compound interest, grow money, make money. Make money while you sleep, right? So Warren Buffett says, learn how to make money while you sleep. There's nothing better than that. Nothing better than that, right? Don't be upset by the results you don't get with the work you don't do. That one's huge. Why does that guy have so much money? How come he gets the brand new BMW, right? He worked harder, that's why, right? He worked harder and smarter. So we can't be upset or envious that people have what they have because they, opportunity knocked, they answered the door, timing was right, a lot of times timing is right. Always listen where you are and take advantage of people that can help you, move yourself up. But you have to be, that's why again, I start with the mindset, a growth mindset's always listening. What's the next opportunity? 30 years old, you're young, you got plenty of time. It's just how fast do you want to get there, right? So, again, don't be that. So, Arnold says, listen, determination, hard work, and stay focused. I've seen it, I don't know, countless times, 5 years. 5 years, some people call it the grind. Just go pump out that 60, 70 hours a week, do the right thing with your money, in 5 years you're gonna be really close to financially independent. That's how fast, and we all know how fast 5 years goes by, right? I don't know about you guys, but '08 feels like it happened about 5 years ago, and it's been 11. This is mind-boggling when we think, '08 was 11 years ago when the meltdown happened. You know how many people have become millionaires since '08? The most in history. The most in history. More millionaires have happened in the last 11 years than in history, right? Because whatever goes down has to what? Goes back up. Jump on the train. So the last one is lifestyle. This all comes down to the lifestyle. And I think I see the youth that want to live these Kardashian lifestyles without putting in the hard work, without being patient, without putting their money to work. And then this is why when I sit in rooms of 200 to 400 people and they're 50 whatever years old and they've got $12,000 to their name. It's because the lifestyle that they led for so many years, comfortable, nice, didn't sacrifice, and didn't let money go work for them, is why they're in those positions. And that's what got to me when I sat in that room and Aveen said, solve a problem. Financial literacy is a massive, massive problem in this country. And I think of all the courses that I've seen that are out there, I think it just goes over most people's heads. Because it's like they start in the middle of the movie. You didn't get to see the beginning of the movie, you're trying to understand, yeah, this movie looks pretty cool, but I don't know what the beginning was, so I don't really understand the movie. Right? Have you ever jumped in the middle of a movie? And you're trying to figure out, why did he do that? What's going on here? It looks like a good movie, but I don't quite get it. And that's what financial literacy is, that in the youth, when we're at that 18, 20, starting our working careers, that school didn't teach us that. School did not teach you that. And if your parents can only teach you what they know, and they didn't know, it's nobody's fault, really. I guess we have to take responsibility and say, I wasn't proactive in learning financial literacy to put myself in the right place, right? But that's why this country is separated 95%ers to 5%, right? 5% of this country owns 95% of the wealth.